Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Astrology and Magic. My name is Valkyria Varadeur. That's Valkyrie of the Veil. It's a pleasure to have you here. I am grateful for your presence and your time and your energy. Before we get into today's episode, I do want to offer you astrologyandmagic.com if you are interested in signing up for email updates, the blog, any of the other offerings that are there. It's astrologyandmagic.com, and that's magic with a CK. Super fun. So if you are looking for any other information about me or the work that I do, there is that opportunity and offering for you. I look forward to connecting with you. And now, let's get into today's episode because this is going to be a kind of an interesting next week. I'm recording this February 22nd of 2024. Now, there's a couple things that are happening. This is going to be a really shadowed energy. Not going to lie to you. There's a lot of shadows coming up. We got a lot of shadows coming up from the deep, dark depths of ourselves, from the deep, dark depths of where we have been and probably don't ever want to be again, because that's part of shadow work, is doing the work, letting it go, learning the tools so that you're not ever played as a fool. So, 3 overarching things before we get into it. This is going to be focused more on shadow work and kind of how to utilize these transits so that you're not totally caught off guard or caught up in the shadows when they do start to happen. First off, and I did mention this in the previous episode about Pisces season. It is Pisces season. And we do have Saturn in Pisces right now. So with the sun moving through Pisces, there's a lot of illumination on that order and in those details of our spiritual lives and spiritual practices. Now that we're into Pisces season and I've kind of gotten a feel for what's happening too, I've kind of noticed that there's a lot of new practices coming in for people. A lot of the people I've been working with have been looking for new practices. I myself am putting new practices into action to activate different things for myself. So note that for you, if that is something that you feel is necessary, one of the things that we are going to be focusing on with these new practices is going to be in the shadows with these upcoming transits that are more shadowed. There is illumination and there's a little bit of uncomfortability. It is the shadows, so sometimes I can get a little bit uncomfortable. And the 2 transits that I'm going to be talking with you today about are the full moon in Virgo on the 24th of February, Saturday to the 24th. The reason that we're talking about the full moon in Virgo is because it's not just a full moon. It's a full moon that's going to be in the same sign as the dark moon. And the dark moon has to do with manipulation and betrayal and the mother wound. Super fun. That is not a super fun placement. That was a joke. That's not a super fun placement to sit with. I am probably going to put some little joke comments as we go through every once in a while, just to kind of lighten the mood. We're talking about some fairly serious things today. Pisces season kind of has us in a serious place to start with, so some comic relief hopefully throughout. But yeah, so the full moon in Virgo on the 24th. It is going to be in Virgo with the dark moon. And since the dark moon is about manipulation and betrayal, and the dark moon is like a double shadowed layer, so most of the time, if we're not paying attention to this placement, it's pretty difficult to understand, to look at. It does take a lot of discernment. It takes a lot of study to really get into the dark moon placement. The upside to the dark moon placement is that it can be very protective. If you're looking at the dark moon placement in your chart, that is where there's the opportunity, the doorway, if you will, for other people, other organizations, other entities, other beings to come through and manipulate you. And in doing the work of unweaving those things, you do have to look at the ways that you've been manipulated, and the emotions that are involved around that are not usually very fun. The other layer to the dark moon is that it does have to do specifically with mother wounds. And so if there is anything that you have gone through with your mother, maybe your mother wasn't around, maybe she wielded very specific tools against you, this placement will let you know where that wound in yourself, in your psyche, in your spirit, in your practice leaves you possibly partially vulnerable to there being manipulation that comes in the shadows. Like I said, it's not a super fun placement to sit in. However, as someone who has been sitting with that work for, a couple years-ish, I don't know the exact time I started sitting with that placement, but it is something that when you do the work, it really pays off. So first, before I even get into the full moon in Virgo and how that's really going to be sitting with the dark moon placement, I do want to talk a little bit about dark moon work and some more practices that you can bring into your life because it is Pisces season with Saturn, so new practices. So if you're looking for any practices to really kind of start that work for yourself, one of the things I recommend for people is that if you are looking at that dark moon placement in your chart and you really want to sit with the energy, you understand the house that it's in, that's the area of the life where this placement will affect you. Also, if you're looking at the sign that it's in, that's going to be the energy and the tools, the skills also that were used against you in that area of life or could have been used against you in that area of life to wound you, to manipulate you. So if you're looking at that placement and you're allowing yourself kind of the perspective and general understanding, and you want to get into it on a personal level, one of the things I recommend is to have a double layer of shadow. This could be sitting in a dark room and being still. That's 2 layers of shadow. If you're allowing and just sitting there and thinking and allowing yourself to feel through things, it could be that you have your eyes closed and then there is darkness external to you. There's a lot of different ways that the double layer of shadow can come through. I do find it beneficial to sit in a double layer of shadow and also involve some kind of light. So that makes 3 if you're into weavings, and 3 is an important number to you if you have 2 layers of shadow and then a light of some kind. So it could be, if you go back to, I think it was the first perspective, if you are sitting still and you also are in a darker room, maybe it's that there's a candle next to you, or it's light outside. It just happens to be that the lights are turned off on the inside. So involving some kind of light can help to bring light into that double layer of shadows, but to enter the double layer of shadow first is going to be important because that's where the information is. And then you say, hey, let there be light, and then the information will come through and be clear for you. So some practices of participation, if you really want to sit with it, if you feel like you need to, when you are sitting with it, if you do decide to do that, allow yourself to really understand too, if there's ever times in your life where you have manipulated people. Because the dark moon, it's not just about how we've been manipulated and the wounds because of that. It's also how we've utilized those wounds to wield them against other people. The other thing that I recommend, that one's kind of a hard hitter. That it's not super fun to take a look in the mirror all the time. That one, super not fun. If you really do it and you have used that before, super not fun. But may you receive, they go together. May you receive the love that you need in the process of unveiling that for you, because it is work that is, I think, worth going through. It really does have a worth and a worthiness to it. And there is a lot of empowerment that comes out of it on the other side. So there's that. When you are experiencing the full moon in Virgo, since it is a full moon, there you have the light. I was talking about 2 layers of shadow and then there being light. Oh, hold on. Before I get into that, I was talking about another practice. So the other practice that I would like to kind of bring through, if you do want to sit with it, if you would like to kind of unveil some things for yourself, for this understanding of these dark moon placements. Also, we're going to get into a Chiron placement next too. So this is kind of applicable for both of them. As you're sitting and doing the healing and the feeling work, it's really important, especially if you are a spiritual practitioner, to understand the tools that have been wielded against you. Now, what does that even mean? If you are looking at the person who wounded you in your memory, And you're sitting with the feeling of what it felt like. You're validating yourself. You're really understanding how it felt. You're understanding your experience of it. And you're looking at them and kind of at their perspective of things. Why were they doing what they were doing? Not only why were they doing what they were doing, is there some point of origin? And it can be kind of generalized, or you can get really specific. These tools are also probably going to relate back to other parts of your practice. So the things that you're familiar with, it could be a compounding of different ideas that you have that turn into another tool, and you realize, oh, you're actually kind of familiar with this tool. You just haven't ever broken it down before or allowed yourself to see it. So a lot of unpacking the dark moon placement is unblinding ourselves and allowing ourselves to see things more clearly, especially when it comes to womb bodies, women, mother wounds, the manipulation and betrayal in more of like feminine energy and feminine spaces. It's more of like, how do I say this? It can lend itself, this energy, to a wickedness. And so it's really important to, if this is something that you think and feel that you are, and have discerned for yourself that you're ready to do, make sure that you're holding space for yourself truly lovingly and like keeping yourself grounded, because going through that type of trauma work, it's not something that you want to force. It's not something that you want to, like, if you truly are not ready to sit with it, your body's going to let you know. Your body's like, it's going to let you know. It looks different for everybody. If you're really ready to get into the work though, your body is also going to understand that, and you're going to be able to hold your hand through the work too. So some more preparatory notes before we get into the transit that's happening. So the full moon in Virgo, it is a full moon. Like I said, that is going to be the clarity. So you have the 2 layers of shadow with that dark moon placement. And then we have this full moon happening. And this is the final full moon before we have the next full moon in the Libra eclipse. So this is really bringing our kind of final veiling of illumination from the previous eclipse season. So there actually could be some things that are coming to light from your eclipse intentions or any work that you were doing from the previous eclipse cycle, especially when it comes to our indirect communication, our systems of health, our systems of food, how our body is integrating information. And then also, if you're looking at your chart specifically, because that's more on a general level, if you're looking at your chart specifically, the house that is ruled by Virgo, that's going to be the area of life where there's clarity coming through with this full moon. And then any placements will be the skills and more of different energies that you'll be able to sit with for clarity in this full moon. Now, the reason that we're talking about these shadow placements today is because we really are in a season of preparation when it comes to these eclipses, receiving what we've been asking for, receiving what we've been working for, receiving the benefits of our work and the rewards of our work. So these, I feel like, with these shadow placements that are coming up, the dark moon with the full moon in Virgo on the 24th, and then we have Chiron that's conjunct the North Node in Aries from February 25th to March 14th. So that full moon in Virgo really ushers in this time, this period of allowing ourselves to realize how we have healed and also incorporate new healing techniques and new boundaries, new healing capabilities. And Aries also rules over the head. So a lot of new thought forms, allowing ourselves the new perspectives on what we've done in the work with our healing and how we've empowered ourselves, if we've empowered ourselves. And if we have empowered ourselves, how have we done it and why have we been doing it? And what power did we actually receive out of it? So the full moon, in Virgo with the dark moon in Virgo, it does usher in this energy of like just kind of right in your face. Here's what's been going on in your shadows. Here's what, it's going to be kind of hard to look away from that clarity coming through. You could choose to. I'm not you. I would recommend that you don't do that because we are in preparation season for good stuff to happen. So, use your discernment though. Like I said, if you're not ready to see it, then you're not ready to see it. So no shame in it. We don't play that game over here. With the full moon in Virgo and the dark moon in Virgo, this is going to be a lot about how our systems of health have been wielded against us. How have those systems of health come to manipulate us? And also, how has indirect communication manipulated us? It could be as simple as somebody looking at you. A look can say a lot of things. That's indirect communication, even if it's happening directly. It could also be that there's indirect communication with the body language, how people are moving. It could also be the way that people are moving around you. It could be different patterns integrated within your body where you realize, oh, actually, there's trauma that's being held on to. Time to let it go. The thing about the dark moon placement is that when you really sit with it, you really do the work, you allow yourself the kind of like mental sharpness that comes with the work of healing and revealing, then there's the opportunity to not ever have anyone touch you in that area of possible weakness ever again. The dark moon, if you are going to activate it for more of a protection energy, requires that you really set up really great boundaries, because this, when you're breaking it down, this placement, it allows you to start understanding manipulators. Now, I don't necessarily believe that manipulation is inherently a bad thing. If you're practicing magic, that's a form of manipulation. If you're an artist and creating things, that's technically also a form of manipulation. However, if we're talking about manipulation in a trauma space or like a trauma-informed space, then we tend to think about manipulation and manipulators as people who are also abusive. And so I want to make a kind of a clear distinction in that manipulation doesn't necessarily need to be a bad, quote unquote, bad, because that's also subjective, and that's just a footnote, side note on that. It doesn't need to be a bad thing. So while you're doing this work, if you decide to take on the work of the dark moon, you understand where are your strengths? Where are your strengths? Where's your power in manipulation? Again, not necessarily a bad thing. You could pour this into your art. You could pour it into your creativity. And when you really learn about it for yourself and you do the empowerment work because of it, you won't ever let anyone else come in again to tell you how to use that power. One of the things that my mentor, Anointed High Priestess Mother and Elder Mother, that is true, would say is that if the spirits of benevolence know how powerful I am, then the spirits of malevolence also know how powerful I am. And she would also say in this moment that if you didn't have the power, they wouldn't come to try to snatch it from you. And so that dark moon placement, it gets you in tune with that power. It lets you know if people have come after you, why are they doing it? And if you're able to look at those tools that have been wielded against you, you're not ever going to let anybody do it again, because you're also looking at your power and how powerful it is. How powerful is your power? What is it worth to you? Are you willing to protect it? Because I guarantee, at least for me, when I did see that power and revere it for me, and true, it's a process. I'm sure I probably still have things to look at. We do have a full moon with that dark moon in the same placement coming up. So, I'm sure there'll be personal revealings for me as well. In regard to that, and also moving on, I know for me, when I sat with that, I recognized truly, really how powerful I am, and that everyone has a power. And most of the time when people are coming in that dark moon placement to manipulate you, it's because they are deciding within themselves that they're not going to stand in their power. It's scary to stand in your power. It takes a lot of guts. It takes a lot of bravery. It takes a lot of courage to be able to sit in your power and say, yeah, this actually is how powerful I am. And revere that and not fear that. Power is something that a lot of people, whether they admit it or not, are kind of afraid of. It's kind of scary to see power happen and power be in motion. So as you are doing this work, also remember to revere your power and to revere how powerful you are. This placement, like I said, sometimes there is a wickedness to it. So understanding your morals and your ethics is also something that might come up on this full moon in Virgo. Understanding your morals and ethics about people who have hurt you and how you're possibly going to handle those situations. Also, too, with this full moon, if we're not really looking at a super like the dark side of it, because we've been sitting a lot with the shadow so far. So if you're not sitting in the dark side of it and you're looking at the like illumination part of it, there's probably a lot of organization that's going to happen. Allow yourself to go through and organize what you need to organize. This is probably a full moon where you're either going to be mentally organizing things, spiritually organizing things, emotionally organizing things. There's a lot of like movement happening in the physical. This is also a moon, since we're right up on eclipse season, if you need to nest, create the space for yourself to receive. That's kind of what this moon is about, to be honest. Like the clarity of this is what you need to do to make sure that you are able to receive when our eclipses arrive. Well, there you go. And then the shadow of it is like, what could possibly be standing in the way of that? And have you done the work yet to empower yourself through it? And if not, then the clarity can come through to help you do that empowerment work. Gorgeous, beautiful. I love it. Let's move into the Chiron conjunct North Node in Aries, February 25th to March 14th. That's a good stretch of time, to be honest, especially for a Chiron activation. So that full moon happens on the 24th. So literally the next day / later that night, we do have, it's like in the next 24 hours. So the moon is still going to be activated in that full moon energy. There's still going to be like these clarities emotionally coming through. So we have this kind of like ushering in clarity. There's nesting. We're working through shadow things. And then all of a sudden, here we are, conjunct Chiron, North Node, and Aries. Now, Aries, I think it's an important note before we get into this. Aries rules over the head. And it's the North Node, which means there's a lot of new. It's new skills, new purpose, walking in our purpose. And since it's Chiron too, Chiron is the wounded healer. So how have you been wounded in your life? And also, what power did you receive because you have been wounded? Sometimes other people decide to sacrifice our innocence for us. And as much as that sucks, we can reclaim what they have stolen from us. So if you have ever experienced there being wounds in your life and someone has stolen that innocence from you, here is how I suggest working through Chiron energy, because it is the wounded healer. If you are able to identify in the wounds that might be coming up, what innocence has been taken from you? And what did it give you? What did it give you? Why did the other person take it? And what are you able to receive? Because it wasn't their innocence that paid the price for wisdom. It was yours, which means that that wisdom is inherently, you guess right, yours. That wisdom is yours. So, do what you need to do to call that wisdom and the power of that wisdom back to you. That does require sitting and feeling and healing some things. Sometimes that's true. Also, because Chiron's, I love Chiron. I love Chiron. I was going to go into something else. I do love Chiron. And I think that when you're working with Chiron energy, Chiron, it actually there's a lot of empowerment. There's a lot of power that can come out of this. Understanding that process of our innocence being sacrificed and the wisdom that we're gaining out of that. And then also being able to protect ourselves so that we don't have to sacrifice any more wisdom by other people's intentions or by other people's hands ever again. That's a really, really incredible process. A lot of the times when there's Chiron transits, if you've really been doing the work, because mostly they open up opportunity for healing and revealing and feeling things, and opportunity for more of that empowerment processing, so that you could kind of arm yourself against people who would want to come in and steal that innocence from you. When it comes to Chiron transits normally, if you've done the work, then it's just a highlight of the fact that you have empowered yourself out of it. Not only have you empowered yourself out of it, you've done a pretty good job. So Chiron transits usually go one of two ways. This Chiron transit, when it's conjunct with the North Node, it doesn't care if you've done the work already. You're going to need to sit in new skills of healing, which I feel mixed feelings about, to be honest, because sometimes for me on a personal level, I don't know about you, but I've been doing a lot of work the previous several years to really be able to sit in a healed space. And now here we are, and we're going to be presented with opportunities to have new purpose with those empowerments and also have new skills with those empowerments. So it could be that you've done the internal healing and now it's time to put that into application in the external world, right? It's like the thing where you can only heal so much by yourself until you're around other people, and then there's more healing, more revealing, more feeling through things. So with the North Node, it is about purpose. I would suggest for you for this conjunction, if you're looking at your chart, figure out where Aries is for you. The house that Aries rules for you, that's where your head is going to be the most active. Now, again, remembering that Aries rules the head means that this Chiron conjunct North Node in Aries is going to ask us to bring a lot of new mental space, affirmations, practices around this empowerment and this healing. So this probably will be a time where there's lots of affirmations, lots of affirmation work, lots of positivity work, lots of, hey, you did the best that you could do. Let's move forward. How can I love you right now so that we can move into where we need to be? Also, if you're looking at more of your purpose, more of your North Node, what are you walking in? How are you doing it? There's going to be a lot of new mental aspects to that purpose, new mind aspects to that purpose, new mental practices, because again, Saturn in Pisces, we are in Pisces season, and right now we're focusing on bringing new practices in. So if you feel called to sit and to meditate or to think about things in different perspectives, to allow yourself new mental practices, it could be thinking about things differently. It could be speaking new words to yourself. It could be keeping boundaries between your mind and what you speak to other people. There's a lot of different ways that this could be applicable depending on who you are and the practices that you already have. With the fact that big deep breath, with the fact that we are in Pisces season and we're like naturally already being asked to bring in new practices within our spiritual practice, the fact that we have this Chiron conjunct North Node in Aries, February 25th to March 14th, it's not just going to be about our healing. It will be about how our healing interacts with our spiritual practice and our spiritual life. So when you're looking at Aries in your chart and you're looking at what these Aries placements are, the house that's ruled by Aries, understanding your Aries energy for you. How can you involve your spiritual practices in your spiritual life with that? Simultaneously, looking at your Pisces energy and the house that's ruled by Pisces, any placements that are in Pisces for you, looking at that, how can you bring new mental practices for healing into your spiritual spaces? It goes both ways. And so you might start more in the Pisces energy and then go into the Aries energy. You might start more in the Aries energy and then go into the Pisces energy. But understand that there is going to be an overlap with new spiritual practices and there being new mental practices and new healing and empowerment practices as well. Also, because Aries is ruled by Mars, there's probably going to be a lot of new things activated in our minds. Some of these things activating us might bring up those triggers from Chiron to ask us to sit and to heal and reveal and understand where they're coming from and why they're coming up, and then be able to change things because of that. Also, new things happening in the mind. It could be that you have new ideas happening around your purpose. What is it about your purpose that you're feeling really good about right now? What are those new ideas asking of you? Where is it taking you? Because this is in Aries and our new moon solar eclipse is in Aries. This Chiron North Node conjunction, it's actually setting us up to deal with and feel through and heal the shadowed aspects of ourselves that could get in the way during eclipse season if we don't sit with them. So that's another reason that this is more of a preparation period, a preparation time, because that new moon solar eclipse in Aries and Mercury is going to be retrograde on that eclipse. There's still an episode coming for the eclipses coming up. So just a heads up, I did want to get more of the preparation stuff out there first because we do have other transits happening before eclipse season. So there's that. And moving back into it, since Mercury is retrograde on that new moon solar eclipse in Aries, we are going to be looking back at other communications that we've written down, conversations that we've had. So if it's possible for you during this Chiron conjunct North Node transit, if you're writing down the empowerment skills, if you're writing down what you're learning about who you are and what you want and the things that were blocking you, that you're working through, and now you feel empowered because you've done the work, that work right now is actually really going to help set you up for a very, very, very not stressful and victorious, successful Aries new moon solar eclipse. Because this eclipse, we're not just birthing, or we're not just going into Aries energy. It's not just an Aries eclipse, it's the first one. So we're being birthed into a new Aries story. So there's a lot of new things going on. Plus it's the North Node, so it's like an extra layer of new. So if you're into preparatory spiritual work like I am, then that is what I recommend that you do for sure. When it comes to also the new mental practices that are happening during the Chiron conjunct North Node, if you are able to really sit with your spiritual practice, your mental practices, and look at the details of what is working for you and what is not. That is a detail that we can get into right now, because Saturn is about the details, and Saturn being in Pisces is going to have an influence on this transit. With it being Pisces season, there's illumination around that. So there's going to be illumination on details. So if you're finding something in your practice, in your mind, that it isn't working, get into the nitty gritty, get into the details of it. When you're getting into those details and you're realizing, oh, that works, that doesn't though. There's where I stub my toe. Let's get rid of that. Maybe we need to move the table so you don't stub your toe again. It could be easy. Rearrange the system a little bit, because that's also Saturn. Pay attention to the details and change the system as you need to. If you're looking at, again, so I'm going to go over house structure so that people kind of know where this could be affecting them. Both the full moon in Virgo and this Chiron conjunct North Node in Aries, February 25th to March 14th. So if this is happening, either one of these, all right, either one. If this is happening in your first house, this is about yourself. It's about you. It's about your truth, your relationship with yourself. It's about your authenticity. How are you doing? How is it centered around you? Can you love yourself more? How do you love yourself enough? It's going to be about you. It's going to be very centered in self, very centered in self-practice, and very centered, especially with if Aries is in your first house. That's actually a native Aries house, because Aries is the first of the zodiac. So there you go. Aries is very centered in self. It's also very youthful, and it's very do now, think later type of energy. That's the Mars of Aries. It's do now, think later. You're going to do it now and deal with the consequences later on. It's different than Mars and Scorpio. Both of them have to do with victory and strategy. So there's that. Also, too, moving back into kind of what to expect with the Chiron conjunct North Node in Aries, since it has to do with strategy and victory, if you really do sit with the work right now and you need to come up with a strategy for the new moon in Aries solar eclipse, and or you need to figure out what victories you want to claim for the new moon solar eclipse, now's the time to do it. Utilize the shadows. They're going to come up and pop up anyways, so you might as well do the work and let it pay off for you. You do the work, it works. Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that wonderful? You know how sometimes you press the button on technology, it doesn't work? No. You do the work in your heart and in your mind, in your spirit, in your body, it works. And that's just what it is. So love you, technology. And also, sometimes there is that. That does happen. So happening in the first house, it's about self. Second house, it's about your generation of income and resources. It's about what exists directly outside of ourselves and how are we interacting with our creativity to make that happen or exist or be received by us. Third house is about communication, creativity. I call this the house of flow and grow, because it's a house of movement. There's a lot of movement going on. It's a lot of exchanges happening. It's traditionally ruled by, I believe, Gemini. Is that true? Maybe I lied to you. Hold on. Let me look. Let me have a look in the book. We have, yes, it is ruled by Gemini. See, I just wanted to make sure. That's one thing I don't, as an astrologer, you think I would have the order of them memorized, but I don't. There's some things I've just continued to look at. Anyways, moving forward. So yeah, that one is ruled by Gemini. And two, if you do have this happening, either one of these happening in the third house, then especially, right? Especially if it's the Aries stuff, especially if your third house is Aries, write it down. Write it down, write it down, write it down, write it down, because Mercury retrograde is going to have a pretty big impact on that for you, because Mercury is going to be in Aries when it retrogrades. So if you have, like, that note goes for everybody. And also, it's an extra stamp of, yes, this is something that you probably need to do if that third house is ruled by Aries for you. So just a heads up. Then we have fourth house is going to be the home and the house structure. So how your house is set up, the energy there, the order of the home, how, like, again, I was talking about nesting earlier. So if you need to rearrange things in the home, or looking at your home, who you live with, how you interact with them, what your schedule in the home looks like when you're there, when you leave, different things of home nature, and being aware of that, going to be important. Probably some things that are going to come up in the shadows around that for you. Then fifth house is the joy. You ever seen a kid get so happy? There's no explanation. There's no words. It's just joy. That's this house. That's the joy. And then it's also our parent and child relationships. So if you have parents that are living, then there could be, or we all have parents. We all come from someone. So even if they're not here, there could be things that come up from that area. Also, if it has to do with your children, there could be some patterns, some different things revealed, some different, like, learning the power you wield as a parent is probably going to be important. So there's that for the fifth house. Sixth house is health and working out. So it's, again, this is the house that is traditionally ruled by Virgo. So if you're looking at the sixth house for either of these, for either the full moon in Virgo with the dark moon, or this Chiron conjunct North Node in Aries, then the sixth house is going to be talking about how your body integrates that information. How do you feel about it in your body? Are you holding on to things in your body? Your body, there might be some shadows in the body. There could be some, like, fidgeting happening or discomfort in the body. Or it could just be that you're growing in the body and things are changing. Also, your systems of food and different foods that you're bringing into your body and what that means to you, how that works. It could be that you're eating comfort foods. You realize you're outgrowing that. Not to get rid of comfort foods altogether if you don't feel like it. I personally also love comfort foods, but sometimes we do outgrow things, even if it's just for a season. There's always a reason. So paying attention to, like, your health and your working out, and kind of like, if Aries for you is the sixth house, also your mentality around those things, and that placement. So seventh house is going to be our intimate mirrors and partnerships. I call this the house of intimate mirrors because while it is traditionally about our most intimate partner, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, it also can be sometimes reflected within our intimate spaces in our friendships. Say that you have a best friend, you've known him for years, then there's a lot of emotional intimacy between the two of you. There could be structures of this house that have to do with that relationship. Maybe not in its full totality, but maybe in some regard to how you share intimacy with each other. So that is the seventh house, has to do with our intimacy. When it comes to partnerships, if you're looking at it from the lens of your intimate partner, your life partner, your mate, however you would like to call them, that person is going to probably be involved with that, with the things that are coming up in the shadows. If you don't have a partner, then there's probably going to be shadows around partnerships and relationships of intimacy that come through for you to empower yourself and heal yourself through. Then eighth house, that's inheritance, investments, other people's money, but it's also about reception and deception. Traditionally ruled by Scorpio, eighth house is powerhouse. That's very true because it's about large sums of money and, like, these really big things coming through. But at the same time, if you're receiving from another person, they have the opportunity to deceive you if they want to. So this house is also a lot about trust. Do you trust? Are you trusting? Why are you trusting? Has being trusting bit you in the butt before? Not super fun. So having shadows around that, or possible too, empowerment that you've already worked on come up to let you know like, hey, good job, you did the work. So that house is pretty intense no matter kind of what transit you're talking about. When you're talking about shadow transits though, that one probably gonna be pretty intense for people, probably more than others when it comes to the manipulation and betrayal Virgo energy. And two, if eighth house is highlighted for either Virgo or Aries for you, then more than likely there are going to be some power dynamics. It is partially Pluto, so understanding your power and how to stand in your power. Granted, Chiron in the dark moon, like doing that work, already assists in standing in your power, and also that is going to be a part of that transit for you, is really, really rooting in your power and not letting other people wield your power for you if you feel up to it. And you know, that's up to you, your discernment. I encourage you to do so, and may you receive the love that you need when you need it, because it is empowering work. Yes. The ninth house is going to be about purpose. And that is purpose in every area of your life. Anytime that you have a why, anytime that you're like, yep, that's the thing. I have a purpose and I'm going to go get it done. I have the purpose. I'm going to go do it. I have the purpose. Here we go. I have the purpose. Now it's done. Any purpose. That could be literally in any area of your life. It's more about like your purpose, destiny, calling kind of thing. But it's also about purpose in like a day-to-day space as well. Say that you have a purpose when you're waking up, if you give yourself an intention. If there's a purpose as you're like walking through your life, or say that you have a purpose to go get a cup of coffee, and you want that coffee experience to be very specific, and that is the purpose. Purpose translates to a lot of different areas. So expect there to be a lot of things that come up about purpose, the shadows of your purpose, things of that nature. 10th house is about leaderships, promotions, being the boss of people, but it's also about hierarchies. So it doesn't always have to do with you being the boss or the leader. It could have to do with how other people, because it's the shadow aspects, how other people have wielded those hierarchical positions against you. It also has to do to the 10th house with how the 4th house becomes public. That 4th house is the home and the housing structure. So from the house and the home, who are you in public? How does that housing structure set you up to be in the public, and what does your image look like, and how are you a leader because of that house structure for you? So that's an important reflection as well. 11th house is our social circles. That's work, friends, companions, acquaintances, random people at the store. If you have an appointment with somebody, then that's technically an 11th house happening as well. There's a lot of different, basically anyone who isn't like your most intimate person/people in your life, and you're having some kind of social interaction with them, or you're seeing them out in the world, then that is going to be a person who is in the 11th house. So there's a lot of different spaces that can be applied to. Having shadows come through in those spaces, normally it would have to do with the people who are at least a little bit closer to you. Probably it's not going to be the people who are the store clerks, who are like wielding this power against you or triggering you in these areas. It's probably friend groups or colleagues, spaces that you're a little bit closer to just because you have a little bit more reference and connection with them. So that's why normally people talk about it having to do with friends, but it does have to do with like basically every social interaction that you ever have is placed in the 11th house. So there's that. And then the 12th house has to do with sacrifice, our gifts, and transitions. So if you are someone who has these transits going through the 12th house, there could be themes about sacrifice coming up, having your hand kind of forced to sacrifice things when you didn't want to. This house specifically for shadow transits, if you are willing to sit with decisions that you made because other people influenced that decision in some regard, and you're able to study it, you're able to study your actions, you're able to study what they were doing, you're able to study kind of the setup of how even life got you to a point where you had to make that decision and you had to make that sacrifice, then being able to understand that is going to make sure that you're protected from here on out, here forward. So that's what I got. Also, wait, too, with the 12th house, it does have to do with the gifts and our spiritual sight. So understanding spiritual gifts, spiritual sight, and those type of structures in your life, it's also going to be important if there are, and like shadows thereof. That's also going to be important if you have that Virgo or Aries in the 12th house for you. So, and now that's what I got. That's it. That's the episode. Thanks for being here. I think that it's going to be a really interesting couple of weeks. I think it's going to be really interesting. Good luck with your healing. May you receive what you need when you need it in love, truth, elevation, in the order of love, truth, and elevation. And I give my reverence, my love, and my gratitude to you, to the spirits that are true in love, truth, elevation, in the order of love, truth, and elevation, to the highest spirit, the Great Mother Spirit, the Great Father Spirit, the spirits of love, truth, elevation, in the order of love, truth, elevation, the mothers of love, truth, elevation, in the order of love, truth, elevation, the fathers of love, truth, elevation, and the order of love, truth, and elevation, the ancestral spirits of love, truth, elevation, and the order of love, truth, elevation, and the indigenous spirits on and in the land where it is you and I sit, talk, walk, and stand. I give my gratitude, love, and reverence to these spirits that are here, that I revere, and I revere you. So thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I give my gratitude to you. Thank you for sitting here and listening to me and supporting me with your time and with your energy. If you do want to become a financial supporter of the work that I do and the transits that I bring through for you, there is an option to do that on the blog, on the website. It is, again, astrologyandmagic.com, and that's magic with a CK. If you click on the blog, when you hit subscribe, there is an option, I think, for monthly and yearly both. So however you feel comfortable to offer that support, I receive it comfortably and in ease as well. And I love you. Thank you in advance if that is something that you decide to do. And thank you for the supporters and to the supporters who already send financial contributions through. You literally make my day so great. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I love you. I love you all. Thank you for being here. And that's what it is. I'll let it be, and I'll talk to you next time.